Android and Apple mobile devices.
Natural pregnancy practices. What is the best nutrition and supplementation when with child? How about some tips on navigating a hospital birth and birthing at home? Do you need a birth plan? What goes into it? What should stay out of it? How about using a doula? All this and more, and all within the big picture of our Catholic faith today. On The Simple Truth, we consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. I'm Jim Havens. It is Wholeness and Healing Monday, fighting to cultivate the health of the whole person, mind, body, and soul. With our co-host, my lovely wife, Becky Havens. She is a Catholic wife and mother with a passion and calling to educate people about the importance of caring for our bodies that the Lord has blessed us with by living a healthy lifestyle. She helps others to think outside the cultural norms and to be their own advocate while not falling into the many pressures of modern medicine. Becky is the author of Toxin Free in 12 Months, a 12-month guide to help you transition over to a toxin-free lifestyle. She also wrote a boycott list of over 600 pro-abortion companies. You can get both those resources for free and learn more at her website, safehavensmama.com. That's safehavensmama.com. Our topic today, natural pregnancy practices. And we always like to give our disclaimer. We're not doctors. We're not scientists, just regular people looking to live well and raise our family. We believe in objective truth and in asking questions when things do not make sense. We're not giving medical advice, but we do want to offer a forum here today. We know a thing or two, but there's still a ton we don't know. We have some personal experiences, as do you, and we would love to hear from you throughout the show. It's best to call in. We can't read every survey response from the survey that we put out every Monday. We do our best to get to as many as we can, but we'll put the phone number out in a little bit. And if you have any questions, comments, want to chime in on this topic, we'd love to hear from you. But Becky, by way of introduction, anything that you want to share on this topic right off the top, natural pregnancy practices?
Yeah, I think that this is something that we can all kind of gather around and share different experiences. And I'm sure a lot of women can look back and think, oh, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I knew that was available. Or as technology increases and we learn more information, I feel like there's so many more studies and more information out there on pregnancy and birth. And so many of the past practices that used to be present, they used to sedate women in order to have birth. I mean, it went like from here to there, whereas like it used to be women just having births in their homes. The doctor would come, and then to hospitals, and they would sedate women and do all sorts of crazy practices. And now I think it's swinging back where more women are wanting to look into the idea of birthing at home and not make it so medical, because it is a more natural thing. And so I think it's important just to learn more about it and to learn what we need to know about having a healthier pregnancy and supporting our bodies naturally. And that goes along with birth as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. And all this clearly within the Catholic faith is quite clear. We're called to love God and love our neighbor. And there's nothing more natural in the world than a mom loving that beautiful child living and growing within her and wanting to do her very best for that child to really honor that child's greatest good. So to think about, what can I do as I'm carrying that child? And I would think that's a common thought, a common question that women are thinking about as they are with child, as they're going through their pregnancies. So we're going to get into that today. And we asked folks as we went into the survey, is there anything that you changed or added during any pregnancy that you had regarding nutrition and supplementation? And so generally here, the answers were all expressing this desire of wanting to do better with their nutrition and their exercise while they're pregnant. Prenatal vitamins was something that was quite common for people to bring up. And also this general sense that they also didn't really know or felt that not much was available, at least at the time when they were pregnant. We also asked, looking back, is there anything additional that you wish you would have changed or added, knowing what you might know now? And what we heard common responses were more research into supplements to understand maybe what could have been helpful more in that regard, or more physical activities maybe I could have done more there. But again, all generally this sense of wanting to do better, but very thin on specifics. Not many specifics mentioned here. Just this sense of wanting to do better and maybe not really sure exactly how to do better. So that's why it's important to dive into this topic today. And what are some specifics, Becky? What can you share with us about some best practices for nutrition and supplementation during pregnancy?
Yeah, so I think it's only in more recent years is the push for prenatals for women. The doctors kind of say, make sure you take your prenatal, and they kind of act like if you take your prenatal, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about your diet. You don't have to worry about exercise. As long as you're taking a prenatal, you should be fine. And I think that is dangerous because women can then go ahead and just pop a few pills, think she's good, and then eat and do whatever she wants. And I think wonder why you feel so horrible most of your pregnancy. And I think since it is a newer practice, we need to be aware that it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right practice. So prenatals have a use. I think it's important to add them into your diet so long as they're the right prenatal. And a lot of tests do show that the really cheap prenatals, they are high in heavy metals. Some tested and increased double for lead within the prenatal. And so, it's not just the answer just to take a prenatal and let the rest go to the wayside. So I think it's really important to focus on nutrition, not only during pregnancy, but very much before pregnancy. And that's not something that many women are learning. Many women are learning today, you just go on the birth control pill and you're good to go. So it's a lot of just take this and take that and you'll figure it out later. But then when they do get pregnant and they realize, okay, I'm not feeling good, or I'm having a really hard time with this, or they're lacking the information on where to go. And so just very basic. I think it's so important to just stick to a really healthy diet before, if you know you're getting married, if you know you're getting ready to conceive a child, make sure your diet is in a really good place. I think really work on a lot of minerals and vitamins naturally occurring in your food. I would say something like magnesium is really good to supplement for women. It can actually lessen the effects of the morning sickness that comes for a lot of women. And something like electrolytes. This is something that a lot of women struggle with when they're pregnant is low electrolytes, and they have symptoms of feeling tired all the time, irregular heartbeat, heart palpitations, low iron, morning sickness, and just feeling yuck. You know what I mean? Like and I think it's very common for women to feel this way, but I don't think it needs to be the norm. I think that we can do better with our diets and really giving our bodies what they need to be able to sustain and not be afraid. I know a lot of women who kind of say, I would never get pregnant again because I was so sick, because it was so awful. And and then their only choice is really to go on prescription medications from their doctor to ease the morning sickness, or do more drastic measures that they don't really want to do. But as I personally struggled with morning sickness quite a bit, especially with my first few pregnancies, I learned a little bit more that there are ways to kind of combat this. Yes, it's a part of the cross, I believe, for some women, that you just can't totally eliminate that. But I think that really doing some things in particular can really help lessen your chances of having such negative side effects during pregnancy.
Right. Yeah. Talking about natural pregnancy practices today on the Simple Truth Wholeness and Healing Monday. Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. Again, the general sense of doing a good job nutritionally and moving around, staying active and all of that, and doing that before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after pregnancy, as you're as appropriate during recovery and all of that. But I think there is a sense that I remember you hear some strange things from time to time. I think I remember with your first pregnancy, someone giving the advice, now you can eat whatever you want. on, just, go crazy and enjoy, basically. And it's like, well, that's probably not a very good idea. You still want to be avoiding the junk, the processed foods, temperance, all things in moderation, all of that. But there are some things that you do need to cut out completely as well, obviously, like alcohol. And I think some recommendations to really minimize even the caffeine intake that some would recommend. And so, some specifics that I found, just a good general summary that I saw. Now, maybe this is put out by more medically minded folks, but I think probably a lot of this carries over. But you can say, you can give your take on any of these things. These are all items that say, do your best nutritionally and all of that. But there are a couple things you want to be keep your eye on, what you want to emphasize during pregnancy. They're going to be helpful to the mom and baby. Here's a list of 7 things. 1, protein. 2, folate or folic acid. 3, iron. 4, calcium. 5, omega-3 fatty acids. 6, vitamin D. And 7, hydration, which you talked about a little bit. But these other things, again, you don't want to be just taking a pill for all of that. You want to be eating foods that are rich in these things. Anything that you want to share on any of that, Becky?
Yeah, I would say that that's definitely probably, there's some good things in there. I would say don't just start taking a calcium pill. I know that the rumor is that, women can't really handle the bone loss and such, but I don't think taking calcium is the ideal way to do it. I think incorporate different supplements to help absorb the calcium better. I think that has a lot to do with the vitamin D3 and K2. And yeah, I have a few other things to say about folic acid, but I guess we can share that on the other side of the break.
Great. Yeah, we'll get into that. We got a lot more to unpack here, and we're going to keep doing it as soon as we get back. But we're going to want to open the phone lines as well. You want to share some of your experiences or any questions, anything you want to bring to this forum today on natural pregnancy practices, give us a call, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. I know Becky has been pregnant 8 times, given birth 5 times, a few miscarriages in there, but she's got some experiences to share as well, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Please join us in a prayer to our guardian angel. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. O holy guardian angel, take care of our soul and body. Enlighten our mind that we may know the Lord better and love him with all our heart. Help us in our prayers so that we may not give in to distractions. Assist us with your advice so that we may see the good and carry it out with generosity. Defend us from the insidious snares of the enemy and sustain us in temptations that we may always be victorious. Remedy our coldness in our worship of the Lord. Cease not to protect us until you have brought us into paradise, where we will praise our good God together for all eternity. Amen.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
We've seen historically, first there was a war against the church, and then there was a war against Christ, and then there was a war against Creator, and now there's a war against creature. So what it seems to me is a rage against everything that's real.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
At the Station of the Cross, we understand that life circumstances can affect your giving options, whether by moving or by switching banks and credit card numbers. Please let us know if recent changes have been made to your payment information so that we can better serve you as you continue to bless us with your financial support. Update your information today at thestationofthecross.com or by calling 1-877-888-6279, extension 104.
The Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here talking about natural pregnancy practices today. If you want to get a call in, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. All right, Becky, we're talking about some specifics on best practices for nutrition and supplementation during pregnancy. What else do you have for us?
Yes, I just want to touch on really quick the the word folic acid. So this is a really big word once you're pregnant, and the doctors will say everything about folic acid and how important it is to be taking it, and make sure it's in your prenatals. You can get enriched foods, enriched cereals with the folic acid in. That's great. But what I didn't realize after we had lost 2 babies and they did a blood panel on me, and they shared that I had one of the mutations for the MTHFR gene, and that folic acid actually was not being used in your body. So about 50% of the population has this mutation or part of it, and therefore 50% of the population is not utilizing the folic acid that they're consuming. And so that's a really big thing for women, because women need folic acid or folate to have a healthy pregnancy, to have healthy development for the baby. And so taking a supplement with high amounts of folic acid is going to be useless for women with this genetic mutation. So I think the important thing is to, and I think a lot of the supplements are transitioning over to a folate-based supplement, because they realize that women aren't really looking for folic acid any longer. They're looking for folate. So something to look out for when you do use a prenatal would be folate or colonic acid or L-methylfolate. Those are the broken down forms of folic acid that your body will be able to use. And even if you do not have that mutation, your body will still be able to use that well. So there's no harm in using that. Seeking Health is a company that I've gotten a lot of my vitamins for, especially if you do have a version of the MTHFR gene mutation. That's a really great brand because they have that in mind. They cater to people with that mutation, and he even has a non-methylated prenatal vitamin that women do really well with, and that contain high amounts of the vitamins that you actually need. And so I think that as studies come out and as women start to realize more, I think women are starting to investigate more, not just rely everything on what their doctor says, and starting to do more research and wanting to be healthier. They're starting to say, take a little bit more control in their health and saying, I don't want to use that one, I want to use this one. And the companies are starting to see it. And so they're catering more to the women. And I think that's a good thing. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention about the prenatals.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, makes sense. And Linda in Woburn, Massachusetts, wants to know about prenatal vitamins, says that they always made me violently sick. How necessary are they?
I mean, now I'm not a doctor, so I'm not your doctor, so don't go by what I say in any way. I'll just share from my own experience. In some ways, I did, I think I had some pregnancies where I did not take a prenatal vitamin, but where I focused on nutrition instead. I may have used a few supplements like vitamin D, or maybe just some B vitamins, a separate supplement of that. But taking a whole prenatal, it was not. If you look at the levels, they're actually quite low. It's not like you're getting a ton from them anyways. And if you realize when you take vitamins, this might be a strange thing to say, but you can tell when your urine turns like a really bright yellow that you're actually excreting a ton of those vitamins. And so sometimes people say like, you're just excreting money. All that money you put into that prenatal is just coming right out of you. Your body's not even using it. So a lot of times you can't utilize vitamins in the way that you think because of different genetic mutations or just the way the body works. So a lot of times it just gets taken out. And so you're not even getting those full amounts that the numbers are saying on the back of the bottle. So, but with food, so long as you have a healthy gut and you're chewing properly, your body's going to utilize the food way better than just popping a few pills. Now, I will say in some cases, such as like magnesium or vitamin D, taken the right way, I think those are important to really take higher, healthier doses during pregnancy, because you're not going to get that from food unless you live in Florida or somewhere sunny and you can get good vitamin D each day. I think that's actually the best way to get it. But I don't know. That's just my take on that.
Yeah, great. And let's ask you the same question that we asked folks in the survey. Is there anything that you changed or added during pregnancy regarding nutrition and supplementation? What would you like to share with us on that? And also looking back, is there anything additional that, knowing what you know now, you wish you would have changed or added?
Honestly, I had no idea about anything regarding pregnancy when we first got married. We got pregnant relatively quick, and I just heard what was out there. Like you said earlier, you can eat whatever you want. You can, eat whatever is going to go down, put crackers next to the bed if you can't get anything down. Honestly, I had no concern. I had no even like awareness of how to eat healthy in my first and second pregnancies, because I just I didn't know. I was not really healthy. I mean, I was just your average American woman who just ate whatever was the standard that everybody else ate. I wasn't going above and beyond in any way to work on my health. I think that was more where you were at the time, actually, and you were kind of trying to motivate me along. But as a new mom and pregnant and sick, you really are just eating whatever can get down. And I was so sick with my first pregnancy, and so I wish I would have known more about healthy eating and how to take care of your body and how to store up your vitamins and minerals before pregnancy, and how that could really give you a healthier, safer outcome when it comes to pregnancy and birthing even. So there's a lot that I had no idea about. It's not like I'm regretting it and need to go back and change it. I just feel like it's important then to get that information out and to really encourage women that, it's good to go back to the more natural state. I think women look at pregnancy and birthing as this big medical thing. You go in to see the doctor, and even when you're giving birth, they're all up in their full garb and scrubs, and you kind of think like, oh my goodness, this is scary. Like, what's about to happen? and it takes the beauty out of the experience in a way, because you're nervous, because you're in a hospital setting. Hospitals are where sick people go, not really where women should go to have babies. I appreciate that they're there, and I think it's necessary to have them. And I've had all hospital births. So I'm not saying that I'm against them, but I do think even from the time I had my oldest 14 years ago till the time I had my youngest 6 years ago, there was a massive shift in how the whole process worked. I could even sense it was becoming a little bit more natural, more natural remedies, more natural options, less invasive, more time with the baby and the mom, more bonding. It was really great. I think because women are wanting more, things are starting to change. I mean, that's kind of what happens, when you ask for something more. People see the need and they want to cater to that need. And I think it's actually going in a really good direction. So I think you asked me two questions, but that's kind of what I was sharing, I would share.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, no, I think you hit it. If there was anything else that you wanted to add based on anything that you did change during any pregnancies, maybe even towards the later pregnancies, if you had learned anything at that point and maybe did anything a little bit different. But let me throw this in the mix as well, because I recall a great blessing, I thought, even with the first pregnancy, our 14-year-old daughter now, she, during that pregnancy, we somehow got linked up to do, since we knew we didn't know anything, we're like, well, we better learn something about this. And you had the goal of, you wanted to give birth naturally, without the epidural and the pain medication and all of that. And so we thought, well, if that's the goal, we're definitely going to need to think this through and get some training on this. So we did this thing called the Bradley method, found a great practitioner who helped us out. She was terrific. We did a bunch of classes together on that. And one of the things nutritionally that sticks into my mind on that was there was really increasing your protein intake. And I remember it was always a struggle because you were trying to get as much protein in. I think it was like something like 100 grams a day or something like that. And you kind of struggled with always hitting that mark, but that was the goal. And I don't know, anything else that you recall on that or that you'd like to share on that?
Yeah, I actually forgot about that. So that's good to bring that up. Yeah, I think it was 60 to 100 grams of protein a day, which I think is really important. I think protein is huge. I think it stabilizes blood sugar. It keeps the heart functioning properly, keeps you from feeling those faint attacks, which pregnant women get often, where you're dizzy and you feel like you can just pass out. At least that's something that I struggled with quite a bit. And it was, when you eat more protein, you do feel better. It's not heavy on vegetables during pregnancy. You're not like looking for a ton of like leafy greens and rough starchy vegetables, because or the cruciferous kinds where you can't really break it down. Your digestion is totally different. So some meats and soups and softer, warmer things are actually really good during pregnancy. And that was a really interesting experience doing the Bradley method. I think it was a great start. I think it was probably just what we needed. It was a really wonderful Catholic woman who is now, I believe, a midwife now. And she guided us through. She actually became our doula in our 5th pregnancy, which was funny. And so she just had us come to her house and do the different things. It was a weird experience. I mean, because you had to be involved in it, and it was like different exercises. And I don't know. I would recommend some kind of classes. And I think that was a good start for us. I think it keeps you accountable. It helps you prepare a little bit. I don't think there's any preparation, because the birthing, it did not go the way that I wanted it, really. It was okay, but it was definitely out of my control. And I wasn't prepared for a lot of things that came up in that pregnancy. And but I think that definitely did help us. She made me keep a food log, which I think is actually a really great idea. These little sheets where it tracked your protein and it tracked what you were eating. And I'd have a day and I'm like, oh man, I ate just like total junk all day. No wonder I'm feeling bad by the end of the night. And I could tell when I would eat better, I would feel better. And so there are really good things you can do to increase. Okay, so a woman's blood volume totally increases. I think it's double when she's pregnant. And so that can cause your hemoglobin or your iron stores to get a little bit lower. So it's really important to eat iron-rich foods. And so there are things in a diet that you can consume that can increase your iron. I needed to supplement a little bit with iron in some of my pregnancies just because it was too low. But things like blackstrap molasses, good quality meats, nettle tea, dandelion root tea, black cumin seed oil, adding iodine, which is really important. You can do good quality seaweed or kelp, just different foods that, you can search all this that I think is so important to stay on top of in order to have a really good, healthy pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and prayer obviously is huge for everything. We can do nothing on our own, but certainly when it comes to pregnancy, giving birth, especially trying to do it without any pain medication and doing it without any pain medication. You accomplished it with all 5 children, and very different experiences each time. But I very much value the general principles that we learned from the Bradley method. Maybe we'll talk more about the Bradley method as we go on, some of the good points of it. But we got a lot more to get to. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. An Alabama Supreme Court case extends sanctity of life protections to in vitro fertilized human embryos. Chief Justice Tom Parker's opinion examines the word sanctity, as in sanctity of the human person, to connect the IVF child to its creator. He explains that the state constitution makes life an endowment from God, created within, not by, nature. Opponents of the ruling seek controversy over reproductive autonomy. The controversy is God. A pro-abortion California study tries to imply that women do not need to know if deadly complications to chemical abortion are present before taking abortion pills. Dr. Randall O'Bannon of National Right to Life says abortion industry studies examine the industry rather than the patient, and so is structured to miss critical data. This is Life News Radio.
The view, the accurate view of the human person, changes everything. The news you hear and see pertaining to the human person has the power to inform or misinform your opinions and what you do with the gift of life and what you allow your government to do. It's why we at this station offer news on the life issue. We hope you carefully assess what you hear, read, and view. A new UK study finds the cost of childcare a primary reason behind abortion. Advocates for mothers say the concerns about family financial health could lead to demographic and economic ruin for society. And Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador continues pursuing his suit against White House actions to eradicate Idaho's abortion ban. The White House wants to reimagine and reshape 1980s legislation to force emergency rooms into emergency abortions. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here. If you want to connect with Becky or get any of those great free resources that she has, you can do so at her website, safehavensmama.com, safehavensmama.com. Talking about natural pregnancy practices today. If you have a question or comment for the show, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. So 99% of births in the U.S., from what I could find, take place in a hospital setting. About maybe up to about 1% take place as home births in the U.S. Now, I found this interesting in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is notable for its relatively high rate of home births compared to other developed countries. It has a long-standing tradition of midwifery-led care and home births that are supported by the healthcare system. However, in recent years, the rate of home births, even in the Netherlands, has been declining, partly due to changes in healthcare policies and preferences. It has been on the rise, it seems like, here, at least in our experience, Becky, which now goes back a few years, of, hospitals that you can find. If you find the right hospital, they are more open to being more hospitable to a natural birth. They have some hospitals have birthing centers and things like that. But yeah, why? I guess, Becky, what would you say about why somebody? What about these 1% in the U.S. that choose a home birth? Why would somebody opt for a home birth? And at the same time, let me just ask you. You know, we haven't talked about this in a while, but if you were pregnant today, is that something? What would just walk us through? I guess the thought process on this. I know we've talked about this in the past some, but again, all of our births have been in the hospital setting. But if it were today, what's the thought process? And is that where what you would want to do is go for a home birth?
Yeah, I think a lot of decisions we make, especially pregnant women, we make is fear-based because we're told that when you're having a baby, you need to be in the hospital, you need to be there early, you need to get the proper medication and the IVs and be ready for the worst. You know, so they even put in different things, one thing called a heplock, which is like a really big needle, ready there and ready for you to stick in an IV if necessary, or a blood transfusion or something along those lines. And you're kind of like, okay, you know, so you're scared as soon as you get there. You're being hooked up. You're on the monitor. If you need antibiotics, you're stuck to your bed because you're on antibiotics. For women who choose to get a epidural, you're stuck in bed, you know, because your legs are now going to get numb. So there's no freedom. And I don't believe that birth should be restricting. I think women are going to birth differently, and I think that they should have the right to do that. So my decision was probably based on just that's what people I know did, and then also fear, you know, like what if something happened? Also at the time, I don't believe there was any good options for home birth. When we had our first, I remember talking about it with some people, and I believe one of the main women who was the backup for the home birth, like if something went wrong with a home birth and you had to go to the hospital, she was the abortion doctor in New York. And so that was like a hard no for us. I remember thinking like that would be awful, you know, would be ideal at all. So I don't even want to go down that route. We did try with our fourth and fifth, who we lost both our fourth and fifth. We tried home births for both of them. So it started out really great. You know, there are women out there, very experienced women who are midwives and who will come to your house for appointments. It just seemed like a great idea. It seemed that very convenient. They kind of cater to the mom and make it very easy. You know, when you're in a hospital birth, you're chugging along to those hospital visits, you know, at the end every week, and you might have 5 kids. You might have some kids with you, or sometimes they don't want kids with you. It's difficult, you know, and I know you want to make sure that the baby's healthy and all that. So it's not a bad desire, but it's very difficult to make that happen. And so there's a lot to weigh with hospital birth versus home birth. I think people are doing it a lot more. I think a lot of people do it because their parents did it, so it's passed on and more normalized. But I think it's becoming more normalized even now, and more women are saying, I think people just need to know it's possible. Like, you can do this, and you're not, doesn't mean you're going to die. You know what I mean? Because there's such a fear base to the whole thing, and I think it's so wrong. I think it's we should be able to have the option to birth naturally with the support of medical doctors, instead of them looking at you like you're crazy and, okay, well, your baby's going to probably have some issues, or you could die, or the baby could die. And so, you know, then you hear these stories where they had tried a home birth and then they're rushed to the hospital and it was such a bad idea. And I just don't think that is the norm. I think that happens, and it's good to have a plan in place. I would definitely weigh doing a home birth at this point. I'm older, so there's always the risk for different things with that. But many women for many years did the same thing, so it's not totally crazy. I think it's just not really common for our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a lot to weigh, as you mentioned. I know that, we've tried to look at all the factors in those processes. And I remember kind of going down that road at times with you. But I remember also always, serious consideration of it. And certainly as a husband and a father, you love your wife, you love your child, you absolutely want to do what's going to be best. And so, there's a lot to weigh. Obviously, the mom is looking for that as well. So for me, I've always been open to it, but at the same time, having questions and wanting to, exercise the virtue of prudence on it and make sure that we are being very well discerning on it and looking at things from all the perspectives. So I will add this in. I did a little research on this just to see what the numbers say regarding the risks of home birth, such as, complications during labor or delivery, things like that. Well, what I unearthed was this 2015 study that seems to be pretty sound from the New England Journal of Medicine on planned out of hospital birth and birth outcomes. And here's what the conclusion states. It says that perinatal mortality, now that's talking about right before birth or right after birth, during birth. So perinatal mortality, so death right around surrounding birth, that was higher with planned out of hospital birth than with planned in hospital birth, but the absolute risk of death was low in both settings. So nothing to have this exaggerated sense of doom about that this is this terrible thing. The numbers exactly here were planned out of hospital birth being associated with a higher rate of perinatal death than the planned in hospital birth. So it was 3.9 versus 1.8 deaths per 1,000 deliveries. So very low compared to what we're talking about here, 1,000 deliveries, 3.9 versus 1.8. But at the same time, even though it is very low risk, it is about double when you look at the numbers there. And so again, that's not the only factor. That's a factor worth weighing. And then also, various factors, perhaps about age, factors about, how close is the hospital and what kind of hospital is it? And is it the kind of hospital that, you kind of want to go through the scenarios. Well, what would be the things that could take place? And could this hospital, is it nearby enough? And what would that look like? So you really want to kind of factor all of those things in. Becky, anything else you want to share on it?
Yeah, I think that, there's of course benefits to being in birthing in the hospital, because if something does go wrong, you have everything you need there. But I also think that, maybe the deaths aren't higher, but I think more complications arise when you are in the hospital because there's more ways to interfere. So I believe that the statistics say, I don't quote me on this because I'm not 100%, but that there are more complications from hospital births because you have risks of infections from constant checks and people coming in and out of the room. You have risks of higher rates of C-section, which can lead to higher rates of blood clots and more issues with that, and obviously longer recovery time. More women say that they felt more pressured to do more things that they weren't really on board with, because the pressure's there. I know even myself, during certain births, I was asked if I wanted to do things when I had already told them no. And you're in this very vulnerable state that they think like they can almost take advantage of you in a way, you know. Well, she'll probably say yes if we ask her when she's in that much pain. And it's like, some women might. I was able to not, because I didn't like what they were doing. A lot of times I didn't like how I had people gang up on me. If you don't get this, your baby's gonna die, or if you don't do this, or you have 12 hours exactly to get that baby out. If not, we're going to drastic measures. And it's like, that's really not what women want to hear while they're giving birth. It should be a very natural process. It might take a few days. That's okay. You know what I mean? Instead, you have people breathing down your throats like, all right, the labor rooms are very crowded, so we need to wait. You need to wait out here while we get a room ready, or we need to kind of get things rolling because we've got a few other women coming in for the scheduled C-sections. And I think the whole thing is just out of whack. I just think we don't have a right order in our medical system that supports birth in the way that God intended it to be. And so it's sad, you know, because it's many women suffer the after effects. So again, I'm not saying that hospital births are not valid and sometimes necessary, but there are other ways. And I think that there should be more birthing places, birthing centers, some people call them. Maybe it's in the middle, the in between the home and the hospital, where they can get the things that they're looking for.
Yeah, that would seem to be ideal. And yeah, what you mentioned about the hospital sort of being like a double-edged sword makes a lot of sense. That in one sense, if needed, they're there to intervene. But in another sense, they're also there to intervene when it's not needed. And they certainly do like to do that. So that's an issue. But what would you say to somebody who maybe it's their first pregnancy? Imagine us during our first pregnancy. We're looking at birth plans. And what do we do? What would you say in terms of a birth plan? I know our birth plan got less and less as pregnancies went on. We got to understand what really needs to be in there and what doesn't. And we were able to make it very minimal, whereas I think the first birth plan we did was probably a whole lot of stuff, and a lot of it was probably not really needing to be mentioned. But anyway, what kind of advice would you give concerning a birth plan? What goes in it? What should stay out?
Yeah, about 14 years ago, birth plans were really not well received. I think that the nurses and the doctors took it as like a here's my order, and you need to stick to this, and you make sure it all happens. Where I've had nurses kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks. And they didn't even want to look at it. You know, I gave it to doctors prior to having the baby. Okay, this is what I really want to happen. They almost were kind of like, yeah, okay, really? Like, why? You know, like, sure. Well, I'll give this to the nurse. I mean, it was like thrown away. I think. I don't even think they looked at it. And in a way, I was very naive. I had no idea what went into having a baby. And things do change for the mom as well during labor. You might decide you want something different. That's okay. I think it's good for the husband and wife to like have a plan. Like, this is really what I want, you know, and not just a plan like spur of the moment, but be praying and discerning about that over the pregnancy, what you want it to look like. If you have the control, you know, if God allows that control. Sometimes things go totally out of control, and that's just God's plan separately, and there's not much you can do about it, you know, and so you have to kind of surrender to His will in those times. But I would say that I after the first few, I stopped doing birth plans. I just tried to have honest conversations with my provider on things that I wanted, and I tried to be vocal about that, you know, previous to birth and then during birth, to the nurses, because the nurses are the ones who are doing it all pretty much. They're the ones that are in there with you almost the whole time. The doctors have so much more to do to deliver, so they're kind of going room to room. But the nurses are there. I've gotten really amazing nurses who are 100% on board, who, are validating and cheering me on, wanting that to happen. And it's great, but it's really good to not just hand them a piece of paper, but to really know what you want and to really be explaining that to them in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got one more segment to go, a lot to get in. We're going to talk about doulas. We're going to talk about any recommendations for Catholic birthing classes online. Hopefully we'll get back to the Bradley method, which is also known as husband-coached childbirth. So there are principles there that I found very, very helpful as we went. So we'll get back to it. Stay tuned.
The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network presents Saints and Seasons. Today we celebrate the feast of St. Felix III, Pope and Confessor. Felix was born in the 5th century to a Roman senatorial family. He was a widower before he became Pope, and through one of his children he was a direct ancestor of Pope St. Gregory the Great. In the year of our Lord 483, Felix was elected to succeed St. Simplicius on the throne of Peter, at the height of the Eutychian heresy. Felix acted immediately to excommunicate some of the major figures involved. Unfortunately, one of these men, Peter Mongus, had managed to gain the favor of the Eastern Emperor, and Pope Felix's excommunication of Peter and the resulting conflict with the Emperor only prompted a new schism between East and West that would last for several decades. Felix also dictated the conditions under which former apostates in Africa, who had embraced Arianism during persecution by the heretical Vandals, could return to communion with the Church. Felix died in the year of our Lord 492 after a reign of just under 9 years. Pope St. Gregory the Great relates that Felix later appeared to Gregory's aunt, St. Tarsilla, to call her into heaven. Felix is celebrated on March 1st in the modern calendar. In the traditional calendar, today's feasts are moved to February 26th in leap years. Also honored on this day are St. Tarasius of Constantinople, St. Caesarius, brother of St. Gregory Nazianzen, and many other martyrs, confessors, and holy virgins. For more about the saints and seasons of the Catholic Church, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons.
What you're offering and giving to me, you deserve to get back because you're offering more than I can give.
I learned so much through the Stations on the Cross. I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it.
I was attending the chapel and places like that, and through your programs, I was able to find out how other Protestants had come back into the Catholic Church. God bless the Station of the Cross.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim and Becky Havens here, safehavensmama.com. That's Becky's website, safehavensmama.com. And let's go back to the Bradley method as a way to kind of loop back around to the question on doulas. So the Bradley method, I found a good summary here, also known as husband-coached childbirth, is a childbirth education method developed by Dr. Robert Bradley in the late 1940s. It emphasizes natural childbirth and aims to empower women to have a healthy pregnancy and a positive birth experience. So it includes education and preparation, nutrition and exercise, relaxation and natural pain management, active participation and informed decision-making, coaching and support, avoidance of medical interventions, postpartum care, and breastfeeding. And to the point on coaching and support, it says here that one of the central principles of the Bradley method is the involvement of a supportive coach, typically the father or partner, it says, throughout the childbirth process. The coach is trained to provide physical, emotional, and informational support to the laboring woman and to advocate for her needs and preferences. Now, at the same time, so keep that in mind. And then as we talk about doulas, if you're not familiar, doulas are non-medical professionals by this definition who provide physical, emotional, and informational support to pregnant individuals. It says pregnant women, pregnant moms, before, during, and after childbirth. What doulas have become, while doulas have become increasingly popular in recent years, their utilization rates can still vary widely. Estimates in the U.S. suggest that around 6 to 10% of pregnant women hire a doula to support them during childbirth. So to bring this together and turn it into a question for you, Becky, so in the Bradley method, I think, look, going into that first experience of childbirth, you and I were, we prepared as much maybe as you could. But yeah, that was something to dive into. I don't think there's anything that can adequately fully prepare you for that experience. It was traumatic, I think, in ways, certainly for you and maybe a little bit for me, but it was also very, very beautiful, and you get a sense of many things from what's going on in there. You learn a lot real quick, and then in subsequent pregnancies, you keep learning, and each pregnancy, each birth is so different, and some of those births, I just remember, again, you didn't use pain medication for any one of them, and some of them were so smooth and just so peaceful and so beautiful. And I think we did learn a lot going through it in terms of some use of music, some use of relaxation, massaging and breathing and focus and all of these things. And so I would really be there, in participation with you. What do you need? And we would kind of, I would just do whatever I can to help. And we kind of learned what some of those helpful things were as we went. But then we had a doula for one of the pregnancies. And so in a certain sense, okay, I'm stepping back and letting the doula do her thing, but, still in there a little bit, but mostly, the doula is more experienced with having gone through many, many more childbirth experiences, and had more of a sense, especially as a woman, what exactly is needed in the right moment. Now, God can give me that by grace as a father and as a husband in certain moments, and I think he did that in some pregnancies, some births, but a doula, I think, was a great blessing as well. So anything that you want to share about any of that, feel free.
There's a lot to share, but I think that having a doula was definitely an interesting experience. I was, like you said, I was used to you. I was used to, what you and I would do together during the birth. I mean, you're the guy who, 4 weeks before the due date every day, is it time? Are you ready? Here we go. You're so excited. You are so supportive and good. And when it's time, you're like on the ball. You are not panicky. You just get it together and you're like, let's go. And then you're there the whole time, and you're supportive, and you'll do anything that I need. And it was wonderful. So I didn't really feel the need for a doula ever. The only thing I wish I had a doula was when those moments come up in a hospital and they're pressuring you to do things, and they're telling you if you don't do this, then that, you and I were both kind of like, is that true? Okay, I guess we better do it. Whereas a doula, her medical background, like she could make those decisions quick and be like, can we have a moment, and then talk with you guys and then go back to the doctor. And I think that's what I was looking for. So it was not so much the support or the, it wasn't to replace, my husband. It was more a liaison between me and the doctors, so that when difficult things came up, she could take care of that, because you're very vulnerable and it's very hard to make decisions on the spot. And so you want that, especially if you're not really strong in one way or the other, and it's good to have that person there to be helping you in that. So it was great. I mean, she was wonderful. It was a good experience. As I'm older now, I might opt for the same thing. It was nice because the health sharing organization that we use, they covered the price for her, and they covered all my prenatal vitamins. So it's good to look in to see, what's out there too, especially if you're in a health share. They will cover costs for that. Some people say that it's expensive, and I can't, cover that, but we were blessed to be able to get that covered. So it was a great experience. I mean, I think it depends on each person what they want,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We had a question come in. Aaron in Erie, Pennsylvania, wondering any recommendations for Catholic birthing classes online.
Yeah, so I don't know about Catholic birthing classes, but I have a really awesome resource from a friend of mine, actually, who's up in New York, and she wrote a book called Made for This Birth. But beyond the book, I actually haven't read the book. I haven't really been pregnant since I think the book came out, so I haven't got a chance to read that. But beyond the book is a website. I think it's madeforthisbirth.net. The author is Mary Hazeltine. And the website is full of resources for Catholic women. So this was a really great find that I was kind of going through earlier today. She has a directory of Catholic, Christian, pro-life midwives, physicians, doulas, and more in your local area. So if you go to there, you can just search your zip code or state, and it's going to point you in the right direction of good Catholic, Christian midwives, physicians, and in that area. She has a ton of downloads that you can grab things. Like what to ask your provider, addressing fear and anxiety in pregnancy, scriptures for miscarriage, and even for men, supporting your wife during pregnancy and birth. She has things like postpartum essentials, home birth, birth center, and hospital birth supplies, like how to prepare. And then she has an app as well. So if you download the app, you get extra items like a birth plan template, scriptures for pregnancy and birth, again, prepping for birth and postpartum. There was a ton of stuff. I just wrote a few things down. But I was really impressed with how much information was on there. And I think it's a great resource for Catholic women to kind of browse that website. I think she has an Instagram account as well. There's some good information on there, all in line with the Catholic faith. So that's really helpful. She probably has maybe some Catholic classes maybe in there somewhere under resources. I would suggest looking at that. That's called Made for This Birth, and kind of seeing that, seeing if that's in there, and just some books that are recommended. So that's her book, Made for This Birth by Mary Hazeltine. The Nourishing Traditions of Baby and Child Care by Sally Fallon Morale. That's a good one. And then you have a woman called Ina May. And so we read this during our first pregnancy. She's a little bit out there. Some of these stories are a little bit crazy. She has a place called The Farm down in Nashville where she was a midwife and gave helped women give birth for years in the most natural way. So read with caution some of that, but some of it's really, really good. And just a few last things. Just don't forget to ask for the intercession of the saints in pregnancy and birth. St. Gerard, St. Gianna, St. Anne, St. Joseph, and of course, Our Lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep Christ at the center, and as you get into things, sometimes you will have a sense. This seems a little bit maybe new agey, right? If you see that type of stuff, reject it, get rid of that stuff, but stick with the stuff that is solid in terms of faith and reason. And we put some good resources out there, I think, that can be helpful to you in that regard. Becky, any final comment as we go?
Yeah, no, I'm just pray, go with your instincts, let the Lord lead you. It's a beautiful thing to be pregnant, so be open to life.
Amen. God bless you.